Good morning and welcome to Cheche, the show where opinion counts, live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udwaka Mimo. Now, the opposition alliance, CORD, would like to impeach President Uhuru Kenyatta. Why? The ongoing teachers' strike, mainly. CORD says that the government has defied the Court of Appeal order that increased teachers' wages. They say it's a pattern. CORD plans to table the motion now that the National Assembly has resumed its sittings. But is it a waste of time given the numbers? We have Ruaraka MP TJ Kajwang speaking for CORD, and Kinoti Gatobi, who's the MP for Buri, an independent MP speaking for Jubilee. For the panel, we have with us David Makali, and we have Wawerumburu sitting in for Mutegin Jao. Good morning, and welcome to the show. Mr. Kajwang, I'll start with you. Is this all noise, or is this a real motion?
No, it can't be noise. We are bringing our case both to the National Assembly and to the public at large to prosecute what we think is time overdue. You know that we are in a new dispensation, and it has worked thus far for 5 years. This constitution is the best that Kenyans would have bargained for. In that constitution, it begins from a very clear point that the national values that we proceed upon is: 1, rule of law; number 2, social justice; number 3, integrity. You read the constitution going on, you come upon Article 134, which is very specific, that the President of the Republic of Kenya will protect the constitution. In fact, that is his biggest role in this country, to protect the constitution. And then you look at what the President did on the steps of the State House, to come out as the President of Kenya blatantly defying a court order, an order made by a court exercising competent jurisdiction, the highest it could get, the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court. You know, this question of the wage bill has not been prosecuted well. We have tended to project it as the question of the teachers. We have presented to present it as a wage bill issue. It is not. It is the issue whether the government is able to live up to its legal obligations, whether it can pay its debts, whether it can live. So
that's a separate issue that we've gone into, and we will unpack that further. But if you say that your motion to impeach the president is a real one, what's the basis for that? You cite the Constitution, but if it's a real motion, when do we expect, when will you table it?
Well, it is in the offing. We are discussing it very seriously. We are cleaning it up. This is a very serious motion that we do not want to take chances with it. I can tell you right now, it is with the legal office in the National Assembly. I'll tell you that for fact. We have put the spanners where it is necessary, and we are putting the case. This is a conversation which we want to have very decently. Let me go back to unpack 145, because that is where it begins. No, 135. It says that the president can be impeached for gross violation of the Constitution, number 1. And the president can be impeached for crimes either on national law or international law. And then it says for gross misconduct. Now, gross violation. Yes. But let's start with gross violation of the Constitution. So what is gross violation of the Constitution? You see, you don't have to do something over and over and over and over to make it gross violation of the Constitution. But it becomes gross violation of the Constitution when what you do is in the nature that it affects substantially the lives of Kenyans in a disproportionate way.
Can you just define where it is gross, where the president has violated the Constitution in gross terms? As a person or as an institution, the presidency?
That's why, David, I'm trying to request you to look at the issue of gross violation very objectively. It is not the number of times you have done it.
It's the extent.
It may even not
the
be
violation.
It may not even be
extent, but the extent of
could be the sum,
the magnitude of
the magnitude
of that violation. So what is the violation? That's what I'm trying to trace.
You know, when there is a court of law duly constituted, The question of the rule of law proceeds on the premise that everybody will respect the law, that there is an adjudicator called the judiciary,
yes,
that becomes the last person where a dispute is concerned. And that is what the Supreme Court is all about. When a president goes before the people and says, can't pay, won't pay, the guy is doing what is defying the Constitution. He's saying that this country is a lawless country. I mean, you can have orders of court, all it matters,
well, I'm asking
but we're not going to pay.
Let me just clarify, because, you know, you are the lawyer here, and orders are served on individuals. You see, you had that argument.
Yeah. That
who was the respondent in the case that the TSC filed, those questions you've had come forth, that there is, it's the NUT and the unions versus the Teacher Service Commission. So who is the recipient or who is violating the court order? You've had those questions.
Well, I've had those, David,
yes.
But when we are when we are dealing with the national issues, we are dealing with issues which are a little bigger than procedural issues. We get back to the substance of it. The president is determining issues of national concern. Is determining how people will go on with their life, the social justice I was talking about. And so, of course, there are those things that lawyers would want to pick the bones of whether somebody has been served or whether somebody was a party. But the president, he is there to show the children of this country, the old men of this country, that there is a rule of law, that when a court has decided something, whether you like it or not, you live with it. What you can do is how, therefore, you will, you know, accommodate it, but to stand in the face and then call it a national address.
No, my last one.
Call it national address and then say, we won't pay.
TJ,
yes,
this, assuming that this is in contempt of court,
yeah.
If I was an ordinary citizen who was a party in those proceedings, I would be in contempt of court, isn't it? Failing to, you know, honor a court order. So if a court contempt charges or proceedings were to be commenced, against whom would they be?
Again, I recognize, David, that you are quite conversant with the law of contempt of court for reasons that you and I know.
Yeah.
David's part,
but I think
skirmishes of the law.
because that is the point, and that goes to the root of the impeachment proceedings. That's what I'm trying to probe. Because when you go to court, the president will say, look, he hasn't been served, he hasn't broken any law, he was speaking as the state, as the country, looking at the resources available. And he's not necessarily in violation of any court order. That's likely to be a defense on the floor.
Well, on the face value, that has some issues to it. But look, there are two issues. Whether someone is in contempt, that's an entirely legal issue, which is for the judiciary, you know, to mourn over.
Yeah.
We are dealing with a political issue that a head of state who has sworn office to protect the Constitution. That Constitution states in Article 10, one of the values, which is the rule of law. That rule of law proceeds from the premise that there is a judiciary that is going to, arbitrate over issues. When therefore the person that has that mandate comes before the people on an official function and makes it very clear that he is wearing the hat of the state on him, and defying blatantly that wherever the court has said, wherever all these court of appeals are resting with the Supreme Court has said, we just won't pay.
Okay. Mawari, you wanted to come in.
I wanted to ask Ajuang about the moral authority of the opposition, to question some of these things. When you talk about the violation of the Constitution, if Udwa can allow me, the defiling of the Constitution, you have also contributed. In Parliament, Kajuan, where when you talk about integrity in this country, you are in that Parliament, you know what members of Parliament have done to Chapter 6 of the Constitution. And that's where you have members of Parliament behaving the way they want because of a mistake that has been made by this Parliament. What we are talking of is an opposition that has moral authority to point a finger on the president or any other person. Do you people have the moral authority? Taking, for example, how you behaved when you had the court rally at Uhuru Park.
Well, first of all, let me admit honestly that we have all sinned. The Bible says everyone has sinned.
So why are you casting the first
but listen to me. The fact that we have all sinned and that we need to go back, you know,
repentance.
Yes, that does not necessarily mean that therefore things can be done in this country in a pedestrian manner and it is business as usual.
But our response is that you are conducting yourselves in a pedestrian manner and then accusing the president of conducting himself and the governance of the state in a pedestrian manner.
Well, let's interrogate this further.
Right.
Whether we have conducted ourselves in a pedestrian manner or not. I suppose that is talking about how we have behaved ourselves in public rallies,
yes,
or how we have behaved ourselves in different you know, forums or not. You see, the thing is, when you go to a political rally, what the speakers are intending to do is to communicate their ideas to the people. And people have different ways of communicating those. I know that there are issues that the public have roundly criticized. There are issues that we are discussing even right now about how people address themselves. Remember, it is not just CORD that has done that. It is across the board. But I'm not trying to, you know, take, you know, disperse the excuses. No, but let me just finish this. There are issues that will come every day. Defamatory issues will come. People will abuse each other. That really does not mean in substance that we have grossly violated the Constitution. No, let me take you back to the question of impeachment. It is a question of grossly violating the Constitution.
We are not talking about gross violation of the Constitution, but the conduct of the opposition, so that it can have the authority now to point a finger on the government or the president. For example, when you have the podium at Uhuru Park, what issues are you addressing? We are talking about insecurity, we are talking about corruption, we are talking about the drop on the value of the Kenyan shilling, we are talking about all these things. But you choose not to address that is going to help Kenyan, and you dance to the tune to please people, and by the end of the day, you have wasted people's time because it was a working day. You have not even addressed any of the single ideas, problems that are facing them. Then the next thing that you come with is you want to impeach the president. The next thing you want is to Okoa Kenya, and Kenyans are wondering.
Well, leave Okoa Kenya out of this.
No, actually, we will come to Okoa Kenya.
All those things.
Right.
Yeah, but I beg to disagree. You see, let's disabuse this. That a conduct of a specific person, a personality or otherwise, let's be fair to CORD as a movement. And let us not impute, however disagreeable one may be with the conduct of a person. That cannot, in actual sense, be attributed to be the corporate nature of that
So then you need to deal with that person. Yes.
Well, yes, we may have to discuss. We are discussing this thing. We are discussing it very frankly. We are changing all the time. We are responding to the needs of the country, and we think that we are explaining ourselves more and more.
Please come in.
Maybe to disagree with Honorable Kajwang, I read a lot of hypocrisy in what CORD is doing, because really putting the issue of, from the onset, first to state it very clearly, I'm very much opposed to the impeachment of the president, because I believe the challenges facing this country don't rest purely on the president alone. And maybe to give an example on this, last year we moved the VAT bill in Parliament, and it was a very hotly debated bill. And myself, I tend to move an amendment to the same because I have a lot of passion on education, and I was trying to exempt textbooks and exercise books from VAT, which would see the prices of books double in this country, which actually happened. But then, unfortunately, the amendment lost. But then the ODM chairman, Honorable Mbandi, moved a similar amendment seeking to exempt fishing nets from VAT, which eventually succeeded. So I find it very hypocritical of CORD to say that the issue of payment and the issue of management of wage bill in this country rests on the president. I think we are part of the problem as the legislature, as the parliament that passes the budget. Then we have a role to play in this. Therefore, it's a very high level of hypocrisy for CORD to say just because we have a problem of payment to teachers, let's impeach the president. That's not the way to go. Why can't we sit as leaders, see what we can adjust, what we can change? Me as a leader, I must note I came in as an independent candidate, and I look at the problems of this country very objectively, the same way I did in my constituency. When I went back to the ground and saw the problems down there, That's when I ran for the Member of Parliament seat. And I've seen a lot of difference in the last 2 years I've been leading Bori. Therefore, as a leader, I think the solution we have to this country is trying to grow the economy. I wish to give a short example. When His Excellency the President was the Minister of Finance, in the year 2009, the economic growth was just 2.8. When he brought in the economic stimulus plan in 2010, the economic growth was 5.8, more than double what it was the previous year. Why can't we see, how can we legislate to make the likes of economic stimulus, the likes of industrialization, something that is anchored on the economic fabric of this country? Because the problem is we have a very small economy. That's why the wage bill is coming to 52%. If we can grow the economy, then we can have the wage bill come to almost 30% of the economy, and that's why you can be able to pay teachers, because the teachers just
so don't shrink. Don't shrink representation, as the MP Ababu Namamba suggested. Grow the economy to accommodate all these demands on it.
Exactly, and I believe it's very much possible, because we must look at the bigger picture. Today's teachers asking for pay, and the court has ruled. It's an issue still in court, so I think even Kajwang discussing it is an issue of sub judice.
Well, actually, he's not discussing it. He's discussing the impeachment.
But then,
motion, yeah.
Speaking of the teachers' pay, it's just a small part of the bigger picture. The new constitution gives the right to free education to every Kenyan. What will happen when some Kenyans who are not able to pay school fees move in court demanding that the government pays for them school fees? What happens in the next few months or few years when some Kenyans somewhere move into court asking that the government be forced to pay for their health care, which is a constitutional right?
So because Mheshimiwa, what is your response to those moves by citizens?
My response,
when people go to court and the court appreciates the merit in their case and awards them something, what is your recourse? Don't pay?
No.
Are you suggesting that?
No, my recourse is, as leaders, we members of parliament included. That's why immediately we began this crisis. Actually, I moved a bill which is in the Speaker's office right now. The legislative proposal. The
strategic industries bill.
Strategic industries bill. Because I think why we've gone wrong as Kenya over the last 50 years is that we've not grown our industrial strength. And given the current state of the world economy, unless we industrialize, then we have no way out. We can't grow our economy in any other way. So I believe unless we grow the economy, the obligations that we should honor as a government, the payment to the teachers, the free education, the free health care, then we can... because now we are in 2015.
The basic query here at the center of all this discussion is about court orders, court processes, and what becomes of those court orders. Which is where we need to get some guidance here. What should happen? Not just, I mean, everyone needs to grow the economy, definitely, so that everyone gets more money in their pockets, whether you're employed or in private practice sector. But a court which is also sensitive to the economic circumstances, because these judges live here, must also be aware when they consider and make rulings, have issued that order. What happens to that order?
We must respect those orders.
Okay. Yeah. So then you'd agree with CORD that they do have merit in challenging the president over coming out and making statements.
That's where my point of departure
like can't pay, won't pay.
The solution, I've given a very perfect example. We had a VAT problem on items that we should include VAT on and ones that we should not include. When VAT was included on some items, we didn't go impeaching the president. We sat down as a parliament and agreed fishing nets should be exempted, sanitary pads should be exempted, medical equipment should be exempted, and agreed. So if we can sit down as a parliament, as the people who approve the budget of this country, this is a solution we can get.
But what do you make of the example set by the president, saying that the court has ruled, but unfortunately we are not going to obey?
Now, I think that's where we are going wrong. First of all, this thing is still in appeal. So saying that the case has been summarized, has been concluded, is really going wrong. But I believe eventually...
We're not talking about the court case. We're talking about the president coming out and saying, yes, there's a court order, but we're not going to obey it.
That's the executive that spoke. the legislature, which is also part of this problem, which is part of approval of this budget, has not yet spoken. And before court can push the legislature to speak, that's when they're coming in and impeaching the president. They should spend their valuable time.
Not quite. You're not quite answering the question.
We know how Parliament is going to respond. We already know what sides MPs are. And the basic question is this: respect for court orders. It does not matter whether the court has made a ruling or not. In any case, if the president says even before the ruling that we are not going to pay, it means even if the ruling is made, they are not going to pay.
And so we come back to the question, how the executive behaves in the face of the judiciary, separate arms of the government. What's your position on that?
If I may...
hang on, let him answer the question.
I think I go back to the same point that I made, that is not a concluded case.
No, we're not talking about the case, we're talking about the presidency. And how the presidency appears to citizens of this country, given that we are supposed to be in a constitutional dispensation. Right? What precedent have we set?
In terms of obeying court orders?
Yes.
Now, in your view, was this court order impossible to obey? In fact?
You've diluted the question. We've come out and said there's a court ruling, we're not respecting it. What message are we sending to the rest of the country?
Now, I think we should be very clear on the speech the president made. In between being very frank on that president, or on that speech, he gave the figures and the economic situation of this country.
But some of the figures much more.
Let's hear from Kajwang.
Even some of Kajwang, let me much more we should tell you. It is good, we should respect the president.
Sure.
And the presidency must come out in a manner that Kenyans, it is credible and Kenyans can go with it. The president made a few mistakes. One, he told us that the lowest paid teacher earns 23,000, which is wrong, because the lowest paid teacher does not earn 23,000 for that matter. Actually, after this increment, that teacher is supposed to earn 21,000 for about 400. Forget about the statistics, all that. Was it necessary for him to comment on a matter, on a court order that had been given?
There was an issue, David.
Allow me to say this.
Okay,
that,
just a minute. Yes, Mr. Kajwang.
In all forms, whoever advised the president really to stand there and address the nation and defy a court order messed it up. Except, of course, that advisor will not go for the neck of that advisor. We'll go for the neck of the president.
Why?
Who did it, because he is the embodiment of nationhood. But let me say, we have a problem of impunity in this country, which we must deal with. We have a situation in which we are in a new constitutional dispensation, but the mindset is a mindset of old, and that you can do anything can be done, just because I have what I hope at some point we are going to address tyranny of numbers, and therefore I can do anything and everything. That is the problem. I'll tell you a small example, as my friend has given you. You know, we also were victims of this Supreme Court just a few years before, and it was a hard moment when we had to accept and move on. And we were accepting not because we accepted the legal principles that that judgment was based on, but because we wanted peace for this country and continuity. This is what the president should do. Okay. The president should say, let's live with this, and you people go back to the drawing board and tell me how I'm going to pay this thing, even if I'm going to pay it for 20 years. Okay. But for heaven's sake, don't stand out there and let kids see you, students of law who are reading about judiciary.
We have to take a break.
Okay,
let's come back to that issue. This is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. Our guests this morning are Waraka MP Cheche Kajwang, defending Court's move to impeach President Uhuru Kenyatta. And we have from Buri, the independent MP, Kinoti Gatobi. If you have any thoughts on this, do SMS us. Our number is 22422, and you can tweet us using the hashtag Cheche.